now. Hello, everyone. This is BOF Live. I'm Tim Blanks. I'm very excited to welcome Marine Serre with us today. We have had a couple of really good conversations during lockdown. We still haven't been able to meet up in the flesh, but this will have to do today. And Marine's environment is looking very, very lovely there. So hello, Marine.
Hello, Tim. Sorry not to see you, but to be with you. And hi, everyone. Thank you for being here.
We're getting good at this, these electronic communique. You know, the last time we talked, we were talking about core, which was the incredible digital presentation you made for your second to last collection. And I think over the course of the last 2 years, as fashion has found its way to alternatives to live fashion shows, you have been one of the pioneers of making these incredible manifestos, these incredible digital manifestos. And when we talked about core, it was core. The idea of core had so many applications. You talk about the core of a computer, the core of a human body, the core of a kind of belief system. And we had a very, very optimistic exchange. Here we are still in the situation that we were in then. And in fact, it feels like it's coming around for another wave of it. I wonder how you're feeling right now about everything.
Yeah, I will say that for sure, like when we met for core and we talk about it was a really important moment for me. Like core basically talk indeed about the base of everything I'm doing, but also simply of life. And indeed it's like 9 hours of film going through material to people, to garments, through life also. So indeed, like at the time when I made core, I was never thinking we will have this conversation today. But anyway, looking back at it, I think it's like it's something that have grounded me, and that is still resonate today. Of course, I feel maybe today it's like a kind of marathon actually, because it's, you know, we have to be in this situation for long and maybe even for more than a year to come. So I feel not so different on a way, because the value actually that I share in core are still the one that I want to defend today. So on a way, the fact that the situation is staying complex is also probably forcing us to keep reflecting on life, you know, because we are actually in a really vulnerable position for now, you know, about 3 years. So that's how I feel.
You know, over the years, it's only been a few years. You've only been in business, what, 4 years now?
Yeah. 3 years of COVID and 1 year or 2 years without.
Yes. I remember I said to you once that of all the people I know in fashion, the designers I follow, you were somebody who was very, very happy with the idea of apocalypse. And originally that was your response to climate change. You were one of the people who was sounding the alarm very, very early about climate change within the fashion industry. Do you think that the pandemic has presented a different kind of challenge for your philosophy, to your philosophy?
To be honest, for my philosophy, it was a really positive moment. Maybe it's why when we talk for core, I was on the way really positive and happy, because indeed, like I think for first collection, I was really dystopic. I was really ringing the alarm, making all the model dressing mask and talking about ecology all the time. And I was, I think, quite angry, to be honest. And when the COVID happened, I think we all like took a step back, take the time to reflect, being vulnerable, looking at all the stupid things we were doing in our life without even thinking about it. And I felt that what was really world changing was the fact that everyone was, on the same track, on the same shit, all at the same time. And that's make, I think, like the world change. And of course, like in food, the food industry, in fashion, and then we could reflect. And also, we actually do not really need to dress at this time, because we were all actually locked down at home. So you can just change your jumper and then it's okay. You have a new look on your Zoom call. So of course, it was also questioning the industry. And I think it's what I've tried to do since the beginning, like never, feeling at ease, actually, even with what I was doing, and all the time questioning the production, the need of garments, and what does it mean actually today to dress a garment, because I feel like it should be an act that you do with conscience, because otherwise we don't need garments so much. So I must say, for us, it has been a chance. And what I have seen is that during the first lockdown, we actually released, the already like upcycling video where we explain how we cut jeans to transform them in new jeans, or we cut silk scarf, like the things that are on my back, to make new dresses. And to be honest, no one was really interested by it. Every piece were unique, really difficult to sell online. So I think at this time, we saw basically a kind of growth into the view of the upcycling video, and people were just passing their time when they had nothing to do at home, probably looking at the video and taking the time to understand how a garment was made. And for me, it was a really beautiful moment to realize that, and to just see that people were interested in the making of it.
Are you talking about core when you talk about that?
But actually, core is the result of that, because I made this kind of upcycling video before, but just no one knew.
Yeah.
And then when core was a kind of, like I grabbed almost all the things we had done in 2 years, and then it became core. So it became a book with like old pattern and image, and collecting garments. And from the first show, actually, from Radical Core for Love, it also became a platform where we had like about, 10 hours of film. So in the factory, where people were like stitching and cutting, making the pattern of all the dresses. So who will take the time to look at 9 hours of dressmaking? But it's so fun to see, because it's so human. You see like the seamstress smiling and making joke around a print on a t-shirt, and this is what I love. And then it was another part where actually I went to my friend and family house, and it was a kind of documentary of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And on the way, it was also the miroir of our life, like cooking, gardening, being in family, being with people we love, with people we miss. So it was, on a way, a call for simplicity and honesty also into the fashion world, because it was not easy to look, because it's not always pretty to look at a factory making or someone cooking a cake, but depending how you look at it, it can be quite interesting.
But it's funny because you just said something very interesting there about people being stuck at home and having more time to look at things, actually, and more time to spend with something like Core. The people who haven't seen it, it's just digitally layered so beautifully. It runs through. You can stop and look at people making a cake or going shopping, like completely ordinary activities, or you can look at the way Marine makes upcycles, the way clothing is created from old tablecloths, or visiting absolute mountains of old denim, which was quite I could feel how airless those spaces were with all those dead clothes, but then seeing them, resuscitated, regenerated. Actually, you think that people's patience had been extended, so they actually could sit and consider those ideas.
Yeah,
so
because
it was good for you then.
Yeah, almost because the society that of like work and consummation is leading everything. No one had time, like even if you try, actually it's almost like a challenge and a fight to try to rest and look at something and being really interested in someone else than yourself. That's always the thing. And I felt that. And also I felt really that people were really wanting to searching for a right path to engage, like the same way that probably in the food industry people changed their way to eat during the COVID, or even their way to live. A lot of people moved from Paris to the countryside. But it's a bit the same with the garment, like now when you buy something, I feel people are asking themselves 2 times, okay, why do I buy that? Do I need it? How is it made? Who produced it? Where is the fabric coming from? So on the way we were in Core answering to all these questions and being kind of really transparent with the process. And and I think some people get touched by that because they understood that it was a really hard way to make garments, but that it carries also the value from the past, and indeed the value from something that is here, dead, that we are transforming and giving a new life. And that's it.
But it is fascinating to watch people. It is fascinating to watch other people. This is one thing. This sort of seduction of voyeurism, that you sit and look at other people's lives doing quite banal things in Marine Serre clothes. But this is something, I could philosophize about this. I consider fashion to be alchemy, in a way. I mean, I do believe fashion is an art form, but I also think there's something quite mysterious about it, that there is an alchemy. And you are wearing, it's perfect that you're wearing an earring made from a fork today, because what you have been doing is taking the most banal, ordinary household things and transforming them. I thought the last film, Hostel 24, the film that you've made since Core, really brought into play the tablecloths, tea towels, cutlery, all of this stuff transformed. Banality made extraordinary. Is this something that you think has always been part of your creative process, or do you think it's been really brought home by the pandemic? Because we've been inside, we've been in our homes, we're looking at our environments, and we're reconfiguring and reevaluating our environments, and then transforming them with this alchemy of fashion.
So no, for me, it's a really old passion. It's actually coming from my granddad that was during his weekend collecting all kind of um, little object like glasses or key hangers or like small object, and he was classifying them. For example, key hangers, maybe you saw I did a dress like that and a panel in Dover Street Market where I tried to replicate the garage where I grew up when he was doing the brocante. And it was crazy because he was so miniature. He will tell me, you can take this key hanger because I don't have a double of it, but you can only take this one because I have it here. And he was classifying them by color. And when I entered in the garage, I was always like, but why no one know about that? Because it's an art piece. But of course, it's just because he passed so much time, doing it. And I think from that came to me like really the passion of using things that have no value and transform them. I think it's really something in life that is like really important in everything I do. I just think that I was probably shy when I entered in the fashion system, in the fashion week. When I started selling, it was really hard because not a lot of people was understanding what I was trying to do. It was quite artisanal. So I think since the COVID, I'm just less shy about what I really want to do. And this is maybe why you can see it more in core even, and in hostel, where it's really clear and straight to the point. For example, using indeed like a bed cover, cushion cover, crochet from the table, and they are even more directly recognizable when you see the garment. And I even feel that this is quite interesting because I don't even need to speak. People look at a piece and they are like, oh, I know this fabric, but from where? And then they are like, oh yeah, I have the same thing in my grandmother's place. And then you have your memory and your brain that is like growing. And I like that because it has something of like archaeology, but also of family, because it's like almost you pass from your grandmother a linen piece from the kitchen, and then finally now you will maybe make a shirt out of it. So, maybe later I will ask people to send me their old thing from home and make them thing with it. That would be quite a dream. So I think I like that, the transformation, the passation also from generation, and the fact that we are born in this time where there is a lot of trouble, a lot of problem, but with techniques and process, let's try to transform what is there and dead actually, and making something new with that. So that's what we try to do with this.
But it's also the idea of things that are cast off, that have been rejected, being repurposed. Yes, you had a very dystopian vision for a long time, a kind of Mad Max idea, post-apocalyptic, actually apocalyptic, and then post-apocalyptic, where almost like the dystopia becomes utopia, where you start building a new world from the ruins of the old world, from the traces of the traces of the old world. And then it's funny how I think how those things become like talismans, like your earring it's like a talisman in a way, that these things become precious again. And that feels to me like a very, very necessary and very modern attitude, that we need to restore, we need to revise what people's ideas of preciousness are, or what their idea of value is. It's interesting because what you do in your work is show that everything has value. Everything has a value.
Oh, totally. And it's actually quite difficult because it requires time. It requires almost to already know the piece. If you talk about a fork or about like we have did that with keys also, the material need to have a value to you already in the, not in the money sense, but really in the sense of like what it is in your imagination also. And on a way, I think with Hostal and for example, when we work with fork is part of your life. Who don't know fork? So it's also wide becoming a talisman because you eat every day, you know, you put it in your mouth, and then so I feel it, I mean, you have a kind of relationship with all these elements, and then to transform them indeed, because these ones we are not using them, and to re-give a new way to look at it. And of course, you know, where it's always really hard in my work of design is how far do I go in the transformation? And this is a really key moment for me, where I always need to step back and look at things 2 times, because it's quite easy to transform and at the same time to destroy what is the piece. So in Hostal, I really try also to respect the fabric, for example, that I was getting when we talk about linen torchon, for example. And we even thought about trying to cut as less as possible the pieces. But still, of course, the piece should be enough interesting to make it dressable and usable and practical. But at the same time, it was quite important to use what was there, and also to use as less action as possible in the transformation. And that make the whole thing and the whole process even more difficult. But I felt, of course, in terms of energy and you know, the future utopian way that maybe I want us to take, it's also part of that. So you have to also respect the material that is there, and then find the right balance into the transformation.
How much experimentation does that take? You know, when you say you're trying to cut into the original, the source objects as little as possible, how much work does that take to actually create, as you say, a desirable garment?
Depends. Sometimes some material are really difficult. For example, in Hostal, we had these popcorn tops. I don't know if you see, you know, there are these kind of organic things moving from like tops from the 90s. This is like horrible because, I mean, it's so beautiful, but the top, they are like that. And of course, when you dress them, they stretch. And then we made dress out of this. I think in one dress we had like 6 tops, but you have to cut. But when you cut, it's scrunching again. So to be honest, it was a nightmare for all the atelier. They were getting crazy. And even after, when we, you know, we wanted to, of course, go in production, and there we had a limited amount of popcorn top. So we, I think, sold double of what we could sell, and then we had to cancel half of the order because we do not have material. And that's also, of course, something that I really like, because you cannot offer or you cannot reproduce, or we decide not to reproduce or not to imitate what was in the garbage. So we take what is there, we transform them. If you want more, there is no more. So of course, in the philosophical way, for me, is it have a lot of value, I think, in the industry to work like that, because of course for us it's meaning, okay, we sell less, but we sell better.
Obviously, it's much easier to work with something like scarves. I'm assuming it's much easier to work with something like scarves, and I thought in the Hostal collection, there was that big group of denim of over-dyed denim pieces, and then you get the drift of those pieces. They're pretty, you can see that it's repurposed, it's upcycled denim. But there was a lot, it felt to me like there was a lot more poetry in the new collection, that the silks, there was a sort of lyrical quality in the clothing, like you'd very deliberately, maybe at this point in the pandemic or whatever. I know you've said one thing you've always hated was the dream, the notion of fashion being a dream. You're too pragmatic to consider that's like a red herring. But during this time, when people have been thinking about escape and about dreaming, you know, everyone, I mean, I don't know if you've read about people talking about how much they've been dreaming over the course of the last few years. I know I'm just dreaming crazy dreams, but also thinking about escape, wanting to go somewhere else. And somehow that whole thing that existed in fashion takes on a new meaning when people are really thinking about that, you know, even outside fashion. They're not looking to fashion to do that for them. But I thought in your clothes this time, there was that poetic quality that did feel to me like an escape.
I see what you mean. I see what you mean. I think it's because, like, when you are in a lockdown, you are in a lockdown, so you don't see a lot of people. So you are kind of in your box, indeed, like just seeing your teams or meeting people with Zoom calls. And I feel maybe somehow this is also part of a freedom that is then leading to letting you dream, because I feel like sometimes things go so fast, we don't have so much time to reflect. And I feel when you are alone working on something, of course it can be scary sometimes because you don't know where you go, and you need other people to talk with. But I feel maybe the fact that you don't see other people, you don't compare yourself, not so much things were happening. For me, probably it was a kind of relief, because I could take the time to look at this fabric, to be in the studio, to open a dirty plastic bag where I could see all these pieces and take more time. So maybe the poetry that you see is in that. And indeed, maybe you get more utopia when finally, by staying at home, you don't have a lot of difficulties or danger because you're just in a cocoon. And then, it's like if I just get some food and I'll just create. So you only think about that. And probably that makes the fact that Hostal was more utopic than other show, and of course probably somewhere hidden inside me I was like, okay, what come after that? And if I don't speak loud now, or like at least true to what I really want to do, I will never do it. So better do it now.
But so the whole notion of Mad Max, which we've talked about before, this time it was a sort of poetry, and maybe a little more internal than it's been before. That this time this time maybe you weren't shouting. This time you were whispering a little more. That yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the 2 first year of the brand for me have been extremely hard physically, because I was just working all the time to survive, and to survive with doing upcycling, and to see how can we survive with doing upcycling, because it's difficult convincing a lot of people also of the industry, and it was really, really not easy. So yeah, maybe also I get more confidence. And indeed, like, coming back to the first question that you posed me, like the fact that I saw also the community embracing and looking at our work, honestly, it gave me a lot of energy back. And I think it's honestly a lot of, like the team spirit that we had when we were in confinement with all the team. We were so happy to see, our community reacting on what we were releasing, because we were not even sure that we will pass that time. Yeah.
I remember I asked you what scared you. I asked you once what scared you, because you seem extremely fearless. And you said that what scared you was solitary humans, the thought of isolation. because that was something that was that has been very strong over the last few years. Loneliness has become an issue that people have talked about a lot more. It's a lot more. It's been extremely prevalent. How have you dealt with that? I mean, you have your team, but have you felt as the 2 years rolled on that actually it was more of an issue for you?
You mean
Isolation?
during the year of the COVID, if I felt more isolated than
Yeah,
before?
well, the second year heading into the third year, when
Mm.
we all had our strategies to cope with what was happening, and they're just tested more and more and more, and you can feel that there's a sort of, we're getting worn down. Have you felt that challenge yourself, or have you just been
For me, it
happy
was
to?
the opposite, I think. I felt more alone when I started the brand with working all the time. We are having no time to embrace even and enjoy what was happening to us. And I felt like, yeah, I could actually retreat in the nature, taking the time to lose time, meeting people that, it was not in the planning. So no, I think I felt actually less lonely because I thought the quality of the meeting of the people when we could meet were more honest, because probably we needed to connect, and we actually realized the importance of the other more than before, and how actually we need other people to exchange, to create. And so I really, this is what I felt actually. So I wanted to connect more with people, but maybe in a different way. I felt that we could go deeper, and I feel it's what happened, a little bit when we did this letter with Dries, that probably we will never have called each other if this will not have happened. So I feel it's kind of a freedom also to break all the boundary, and on a way realize some dreams or some inner wheels that you will like to do. Like we talk together, about music, about cinema, about art, and just also to see a bit outside of the box of fashion, and enlarge this perspective of life.
Talking about that initiative with Dries and the rewiring fashion initiative that BOF did, that they were responses to a very difficult time. What looked like it was going to be an extremely difficult time for for independent designers and retailers, and there was a kind of optimism that came out of that. Oh, we can do things differently, or we should try and do things differently, and this is the way that we could do that. How do you feel now when you see that the industry is swinging back in a lot of ways to the way it was 2 years ago, when the buzzword was change? We need to change. Change has to come, and there were so many forces impacting on fashion that seemed like they would make the change. And then the pandemic came along and sort of stopped everything in its tracks. How do you feel now about those initiatives?
Depend of the day. Honestly, not so happy. I was really worried when actually the lockdown was released, because that was kind of fear I had. I was like, oh my God, everything is going to come back like before. Everyone is going to run to shops, and the story of upcycling is finished. So it's a little bit what is happening now, to be honest. But of course, with some change, and people that are keeping grounded in what they have realized for themselves, for others, for their life during the confinement. So yeah, I think I trust that part of the society is not going to forget that. I'm someone that trusts people, and I think it's going to come back at some point. And anyway, as we can see, you know, like we are not out of the problem. So I think let's not, you know, how to say it, like, you know, put glasses and look just on the future, but let's just be honest with what happened. So me, I'm trying to really stick to that. Anyway, it's what I stick since already 4 years, but I think anyway, the pandemic have give the possibility of like a great move and have opened doors that now are kind of open, where I think for the people that want to have a better future, we have to open them and keep them open now and not be scared actually, and maybe a little aggressive. And I think at some point we will be enough, because we will see the change in our life. And yeah, for the others, I don't know.
I mean, do you think there's a certain inevitability in fashion that an industry that is based on consumption is always going to produce waste? And so there's a certain, you know, I think about this, that maybe the fashion industry will never ever be the industry we want it to be, just because human nature is fairly fickle.
I mean, anyway, as I said, I think to you, like when you go run in the forest, you don't need garments. So I think the thing is that today we are not coming nude in the street. We are all dressing up. So I think this is part of our culture. So the question is, how do we dress when we go out? And in which way, in which conscience also of ourselves we are doing that. But do not mean that indeed it's not going to be ever clean, because anyway, it's like energy, it's waste. But of course, this is why I like so much this Mad Max and this regenerative process, is because it's taking something that you found, whatever, you know, in the forest, in the warehouses, and then from that you take your time, you transform it, and you make actually, you know, something fun, sometimes something that have humor, something that protects you, something that make you feel stronger, something that make you feel different. But at least what I like is that this is with something that is already there. So how, you know, like I'm thinking, how can we, like, these things are there, so or I'm using them and I'm transforming them, or they are just here and maybe they're just getting burned. So yeah, so of course it's still a product, it's still a piece, and it's not nothing. But I think indeed we are, I mean, as soon as we will keep dressing garments, we just have to find a way to do that. But I think let's find a way that have sense also. You know, it's not like we need garments.
I mean, I think something that kind of makes your work powerful, that makes your work so powerful, is it goes back to your upbringing, being raised in the forest, where you actually did say, I think it's one of your most memorable lines, is I didn't need clothes in the forest. So you have this sense that where we reach a point where we don't need more clothes. You're a designer, but you can actually imagine that point. And I think that gives your work an interesting kind of power, because you appreciate something beyond, you know, beyond fashion. You understand that you understand that the essence of fashion in a different way from a lot of other designers, because you didn't need clothes when you were growing up, like a wild child in the woods, like an alien almost. That you do have this perspective. I feel that you look at the world like, sometimes you look at the world like you are an alien, like you see things that other people see as very boring and ordinary, as quite extraordinary. And we've talked about that as well. When you made the film you made before Core, Amor Fati, which was an entirely apocalyptic vision of a kind of new race almost. Do you see these are the terms that you kind of can think in because you are an outsider, you think?
Yeah, I think I do not choose it, but it's just happened like that. You know, I just born in the countryside, indeed, in a village of 5 people. I do not knew fashion. When I start fashion school, people ask me, you know, do you know this and this and this designer? I knew no one. I knew nothing. They were like, oh my God. But then at the same time, I was like upcycling some wood piece, and you know, they were like, oh my God, she's quite nut. So I think I have this outsider view, and of course I enjoy nature. I respect nature also a lot, like human, and so I think this is more something, yeah, really personal, to be honest, that will probably never leave me, and I'm happy with that. But it makes sometimes my life, of course, difficult. Suddenly, when you want to, you know, kind of create a brand, because it's sometimes totally like opposite. So yeah, indeed, like also I'm not really afraid of if one day, and because we think about it with the team, maybe one day we will not have enough or no resource anymore with upcycling. We'll have used everything. And then what happened, you know? But then actually it will be a great moment. Maybe then we'll start recycling our own garments, and we will find new ideas and recycle the thing we sold 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And I think this is also magical, you know, the fact that you evolve and you transform yourself, but even the company, even the people working with you during the time. And if you can make change in a lifetime, wow, I mean, that's already quite something. So I see things like that, you know, I don't see things too long. And I'm not scared.
When you see people catching up with you, like you said, that you feel confident because you don't feel so alone now in what you are doing. Do you actually imagine a time would come when everything's used up? Is that possible? Everything's used up, and you know, fashion is this entirely regenerative organism. It's kind of a gorgeous idea, but it's hard to imagine.
Yeah, of course, I mean, honestly, I don't have the numbers, but when I see the warehouses and how full they are, honestly, it's not going to happen tomorrow. Because the waste of fashion is huge. It's really huge. So I don't even know if in a lifetime this will be possible at all. And of course, the waste is not descending that much because, you know, as you create new garments, then they are going back in the chain. So I think the only way that this could stop is to create like that and at the same time consume less. And then at some point you will have less garments in the warehouses because people have buy less garment. That will be the perfect utopia.
Or something we talked about at BOF Voices a lot over the last few days was the idea of the metaverse. Now, what do you think of that? I think of your work has been dystopian, but also there's been a very strong sci-fi theme in all your work over the years. And I'm kind of literal enough that I see the metaverse as being a kind of sci-fi concept. But are you thinking about things like that now? Options like that?
Of course. I think they are like part of our present, and and for this reason they should be looked at. And indeed, like I always have this sensibility for like cartoons and manga and characters also, because in almost like when I make looks, I think about the person and how she's going to work with it and how she's transforming her own self, because garment is made for that at the end. it's an armor that is transforming you also in the eyes of other people looking at you. And that's maybe why I, like from the fact that when I was young in the forest, I do not use that. When I discovered fashion, I was fascinated because I thought, wow, you can be another person with this. It's quite interesting. So I think the metaverse on that sense, yeah, it's interesting also to look at it.
The face mask has always been a sort of signature piece of yours, which is incredible. Obviously, suddenly the entire world is wearing face masks. It makes me wonder, how much of fashion is a reflection of what's going on, and how much of it is a projection of what's coming. I mean, there's no way you knew there was.
To be honest, yeah. I think both is, I think at the same time, fashion is bringing you way, and of course it's why I'm interested to still work in this milieu, because I feel that indeed, certainly today, fashion industry is taking a lot of place in the worldwide communication, and it was probably not the case 40 years ago. So it have a power to, I think, change way to live, mode de vie, and I believe that. And of course, there are also on the just a reflection of what is happening. It can be reflection, sometimes it's protection. So I think these two things, they are just happenings at the same time. Yeah.
But maybe I think maybe your people always seem to be warriors to me, and now they seem to be more poets, which is kind of an interesting evolution.
Maybe both also.
Have you seen
they can transform, they are like cartoons. Yeah. Sometimes they are poets when they feel, when they feel safe and confident, they are more poets, and when they are in danger, they get their armor. I think it's a bit that. And also I often said the story of the brand is also the story of how the brand grow, and also how the community interact with us. I'm really sensible with the comment of the community on the show or the film, or people that interact with us. So it's part of the exchange. I lose what I wanted to, why I was saying that, but I mean, yeah.
Well, no, the warrior poet to me is a super interesting.
Oh yeah,
it's a super interesting hybrid. It's definitely a figure that resonates and has always resonated in your work, I think.
Yeah, well, probably I'm a little bit like that, and I think everyone
has this
this double side too. And indeed, depending of the weather, sometimes you need to protect, and I'm also happy that I feel like also I'm at the services of the community or the people that are going to buy a garment. What I wish the most is that they can feel themselves. And sometimes you need to feel protected. You want to transform. You want to feel reassured with your, I don't know, leather coat or something that is taking space. That's why I love actually so much like film costume or things like that, because they are a little bit exaggerating that, but they are so strong visually that they are making you stronger too. And of course, like the poet part of it work the same way,
Have you seen Dune, the new Dune?
Yeah, I saw it.
I mean, I saw it in IMAX. Apparently, that makes all the difference, because I was completely overwhelmed by it. I thought it was the most transcendent experience. But it's just what you're talking about there. The costumes in the film, actually, it was kind of like watching a little bit of a Rick Owens fashion show and a bit of Marine Serre fashion show. There was this element of this, if that's what the future looks like, it felt strangely familiar, actually.
What I really like actually in Dune is also the fact that this really futuristic garment, they are becoming futuristic because of the utility of the water. And of course, this is like quite crazy because like they can drink from them own sweat because of a system of the garment. So their technology is really important. And this is another, part of my work also. That's why I was also working a lot with sportwear, with like comfortable garments, and making sure that this is also respect. And this is quite difficult actually in terms of upcycling to meet this point. So actually that's why the collection is divided in two, because I can't have a second skin fabric that are recycled or even underwear from upcycling. Some material, when you use them, they are, you cannot transform them because they are already destroyed after their time life. So that's actually a quite, like the other side of the upcycling part.
So how do you cope with that?
Well, there we are working with recycling threads. So for example, we take all the wool that are coming from coats or pullover, and then we work with factory that are actually cutting that and transforming it in a new thread, and then they can re-knit a sweater or a coat. So when you see the tailoring, for example, with the losange moon, they are made out of this fabric, sometimes with cotton, sometimes with wool. The moon top is made like that with like plastic bottle that are recycled. What do we have? We have the moiré also. So the moiré fabric, there is a kind of mix in between artisanal and technology. So we work with an old manufacturer in France that is that was doing the moiré since I don't know how much generation, I think 3. And then this is made of cotton and polyester. And when we start working with him, he had this artisanal technique, but the cotton was cotton and the polyester was polyester. So then we work with him, and then we provide him recycled polyester and biological cotton. And then he made his artisanal technique on it. So it's also, it's also that type of things that we are thinking about when we are making products that are non-upcycled.
So that's
and I think
that's another very futuristic element, is the hybrid of the artisan and the technologist. Then there's tradition and futurism. I wanted to ask you about the half moon, the lozenge moon, and how important that has been for you to establish your signature in fashion.
Quite magical, because I remember when I was working on Radical collection, it was quite a stand to use the moon, and I adopt, but at the same time, sometimes I stopped adopting and I like it, and it was for an inner reason that I wanted to do that. And I remember kind of dreaming and thinking, oh, maybe one day people will dress that like a sport t-shirt, And then somehow, like, I think like 6 months after or a year later, this happened. One day I went to a manifestation in Paris and I saw someone with a moon top. I was like, wow, so nice. So I think it's not, it's also out of my hand. And honestly, it was so unplanned that I cannot say so much about it. The only thing that I can say is that I still really love the moon today. And I even love the fact that when I started, I do not even knew all the meaning of the moon. And today I discover like more and more meaning every day about like, Japanese references, about the part of femininity of the moon, about the link with witches. And I'm like, wow, if I will have think about all that before, I'm not even sure I will have found the moon. So I don't know, let's believe in magic there.
Well, we did talk about alchemy, and I love it. I love it that the magical moon is like your symbol. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. We will take this up again sometime in the future, and hopefully it will be when we can actually get to see each other, which would be very, very nice. So it's lovely to see you, Marine. Thank you very, very much. And I love your curtains.
Thanks to you, Tim, and thanks to everyone for